Hello everyone, this is Dwayne, and in this movie we're going to demo some of the features of the new version of the use case builder tool. So here you see the current version of the main screen. I assume that's going to change over time, so it may change by the time you view this movie, but it'll probably be about the same. The idea is that it's a central point that you can go to, and in this version it does have some basic information about the tool. And then it has an area where the version history will be. And then we can view use cases or list them. So if we view use cases, it goes right to the main area. We can go back to main and go to where all the use cases are listed and click on any one to bring it back to that regular area. So let's just go ahead and create a new use case. So we'll click on the new button. And you can see that it's totally blank, and in the wrap-up area, which will show our changes as we make them. Let's go ahead and just create one called login to a system. And the author would be myself. Its status is new, and let's just choose that as going to the CRM system 2.0. And our primary actor could be any user. And secondary actors could be developers or testing. And let's go ahead and give that a priority of medium. You can see how these different areas are starting to pop up off to the side. Frequency of use, well, let's say at least once per day for daily users. And then the assumptions, so the assumptions would be, something we'd assume would be in place for them to actually be able to log in. And of course that would be that each user would have their account set up to access the system. And let's go ahead and just make a note, say this should be automatic based upon nightly pulls of PeopleSoft data. So now we have an assumption. Now, how about a business rule? Well, so they're going to be logging into this system. They're probably going to have security needs. So let's just go ahead and create an itemized number one, though we can create many of those. But let's just do one and say that every user access setting should conform to the established security specification document, or SSD. I just kind of made that up. And let's say number two, every user should be able to contact an admin person if account is not acting properly. And we'll just put that in. It's kind of a placeholder, but now we see that in. We've got a 1 and a 2. Now we look at it, and it doesn't look quite right, so I'm just going to put in an extra carriage return. And now they're popped down here. So it looks a little weird here, but it looks fine there, and that's something that you can do in the system. And then we can later on go on and program that back out. Say add carriage returns if you wanted to. And then let's see, other info, let's skip that for now. Let's just put in a description. Let's say that this use case describes the process in which a user accesses the system. And a trigger, well, let's go ahead and say any time the user is not logged into the system, but wants to access data in the system. And let's go back and do some ones and stuff. Let's just say that could be direct browser URL access. Let's say clicking a shortcut. Or let's say clicking a link in an email. Say like they want to pull up a particular client and find out what's going on. One person emails the link to that particular client record from one to the next. So what we've done is to enter in what I call the header and footer information for the use case. So we've got a lot of general information up here and then some more data about the particular use case. Now what we want to do is to fill in the body, the flow. And that body, that section itself, that grouping of components, it also has a bit of a header and footer information, which I normally would call, or what are usually called, the preconditions and the postconditions. So what we're going to end up doing is saying these are the preconditions that we have for the use case, and then we'll go in and say this is the normal flow through the system, any alternate or exception flows, and then after those are done, we'll have a postcondition of what the system should have. So again, kind of using the Oreo cookie metaphor, we're going to do the cookie parts and put in the cream filling a little later. So in the precondition for our use case, let's just say that the user has an account in the system. That way they can log in. I'm going to hit the tab key, which brings me to my sort, which I could change the sort order if I needed to. And matter of fact, let's just do that now. Let's take the user has an account in the system, put it in the second, and then go up to the top and say the user has been given training in the system. So these are two preconditions. Now, this is just kind of a stupid pet trick in a way. But if you just change the numbers in here and then exit out, it'll reorder it and then give it the numbers back again. So I'm going to want to put this in top of that one. And normally you could do a click and drag, and this version of FileMaker doesn't do it. So I'm just going to say I'm going to make that a 0.9 because 0.9 is ahead of 1. And then when I click out of this row, what's going to happen is the system is going to put this back up to the top and then go 1 and 2, reset the numbers again. And there the user has the account in the system and it has been given training. So it happens quite fast. And that method will be how we do any kind of reorders in preconditions, postconditions, normal flow, alternate flow, and exception flow. And let's go into the postconditions. Oh, you can see your preconditions showing up here off to the side. So the postconditions, we'll say the user is taken to their dashboard in the system. And hit the tab key twice. Let's see, the user can see any assignments that are waiting for them. And now you see we have our preconditions and our postconditions set up. Okay, so let's enter in our first normal flow, or the normal flow for this use case. So usually only have one normal flow per use case. If you have multiple normal flows, you would create additional use cases. So we're going to navigate over to this third tab over here, the flow, and to the normal. And let's say this is give it a title, the general log in to the system. Kind of redundant, but hey, let's go ahead and do that. And so now we need to go ahead and start adding in our descriptions. Now you notice that even though I entered this in, it hasn't shown up here. And that's because the system won't do that. It won't show anything until you start entering in actual flow items. So if you don't have any, it doesn't show it at all. So another thing that is common when you start adding flows is that you reached out to a stakeholder and says, well, what are your expectations? Or you were having a workshop and you wrote these things down. The point that I'm getting is that you may not be writing these from scratch. You may have gotten a document and you just want to paste that in. So let's say that's the case here. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, so these are the notes that I've been given that I'm going to put into the system. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy those notes and go back over to our database. And I'm going to click this third tab to the left called the sandbox. And basically this is just an area where I can paste stuff. So I'll go ahead and paste that in. And now I've got, my regular system. And then I'm just going to copy and paste these over. So one thing you can do is just highlight that particular string and say let's do a cut. Go over here, do a paste, or your keyboard shortcuts. And now they're in. And if we want to go over to our wrap up, now you can see our general flow is starting to show up. Let's go back over to the sandbox. And we always want to put it in the last one. So what I ended up doing, so let's say that we're going to go ahead and cut this one. I just added a button here because what I found out was if I had a bunch of these, I had to scroll all the way down and do my paste and stuff. So all this button does is find the very last item and just paste it in. And let's go ahead now, just use the keyboard shortcuts and show you how fast we can just go through this. And we can just clean up our sandbox, go back to our wrap up, and see that our normal flow is showing as we expected it would. We covered a lot in this demo, and there were some things we didn't get a chance to get to. So in wrapping this movie up, I'll just want to talk about those aspects. We did focus on the general data entry, and in particular, the component nature of use cases and how the tool embraces and leverages that. We also talked about how you can work on a particular component, but still see how the use case organically evolves via the wrap-up feature. And we did show you how you can use the sandbox area to cut and paste from an existing documentation into the use case. Some things that we did not cover. There is a duplicate feature in the tool. You can actually see the button right here. And when you click that, it brings up a dialog box asking you what content do you want to duplicate from the existing use case. And then it creates that duplicate, and then you can modify it for whatever the new need is. So like in the demo we did, log into a system, well, we could duplicate that and then create a use case for how that may change in a mobile environment. We didn't talk about how you can copy and paste multiple use cases into Microsoft Word to build your traditional requirements documentation. And we also didn't talk about any of the under-the-hood programming that you could do if you're familiar with FileMaker Pro. These will probably be additional movies that we do for the tool. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me at Dwayne at thepracticalba.com or info@dwaynewright.com. Thank you very much.